Welcome into 76ers Now. Jake Chipper here with you. And coming up on today's show, going to recap both of the Sixers weekend games, the win over the Raptors on Saturday and the loss to the Pistons on Sunday, where the Sixers in both of these games, although they split, rocking these fresh new jerseys. Some good, some bad to talk about from both the win and the loss. So we're going to kind of dive into everything I saw, everything I noticed, and break down these Sixers games over the weekend. Before we do, Sixers are off today on this Monday, November 10th, but they'll be right back at it tomorrow night on Tuesday against the Boston Celtics, and we will be live for that game right here on the channel. Game gets underway at 8 p.m. Eastern, so we'll be live just about 15 minutes before that game does get underway. A little bit of a pregame show, live play-by-play. We'll react to the Sixers-Celtics game, already their third matchup of the year. So subscribe, turn on your notifications. That way, when we do go live here, you will be notified. So let's start with the Sixers win on Saturday over the Toronto Raptors. It was a game where, Sixers didn't start off all their best, had to come from behind a little bit in order to win this one. But, rocking those new throwback jerseys for the first time this season, you knew they had to get it done, and they had to get a dub rocking those jerseys, and that's exactly what they did in this game. And, man, we saw some standout performances from the big names, but from some of the smaller names as well, at least smaller names to people who might not follow this Sixers team as closely as some of us do. But let's get started with, of course, Tyrese Maxey, right? I mean, he's been the guy all season long, and it seems like he's putting up 30-point games like it's nothing, right? Pretty routinely and pretty regularly at this point. Another 30-piece from this one, 31.7 assists, 4 rebounds, shooting the ball efficiently once again. 3 of 10 from 3, hitting a couple of those. Hasn't been quite as hot from 3 over the past few games, but still having a phenomenal season. Still, I believe, top 5, top 6 in MVP voting. And once again in this game, hitting some big-time shots, especially in the second half, in this third quarter where, Sixers in the first half got down a little bit, had to come back in the second quarter. In the third quarter, they kind of continued that. And this is one of the better third quarters they have played, although late in that third quarter, they did once again allow Toronto to get back into this game. And it was a good game, kind of back and forth towards the end, but Sixers did end up pulling away. I continue to love what I've seen out of Tyrese Maxey this season, taking that leap from a playmaking perspective, from a shot-making perspective. It's just been phenomenal for Tyrese Maxey. He's pretty much a lock for the All-Star game at this point. I think on his way to an All-NBA kind of season. Also, Joel Embiid, we criticized Embiid a few games ago, specifically in that game against the Chicago Bulls, where he really didn't look his best. He was kind of getting attacked on the defensive end of the floor. Chicago was putting him in a lot of pick and rolls, right? And in the end of that game, in the fourth quarter, they were really feeding Embiid the ball, wasn't making a lot of shots. But in this game against the Raptors, and in one of the previous games, I can't remember exactly who it was that they were playing against, but Embiid has looked a lot better as of late. He's getting more comfortable, I think, with that minutes restriction, taking those shots that he's so comfortable taking in the mid-range that, look, they're going to start falling eventually, and they did start falling in this game against Toronto. 29, 6, and 4 for the big fella. Only hit 1 3, but doing a lot of his work inside of that three-point line. Continues to look more and more comfortable, more and more playing the flow of the offense instead of just give him the ball and trust he can get a shot off. When this team is playing, moving the ball, right? And Embiid, just the gravity he draws. You can really see the difference between this game against Toronto and the game we'll talk about in a second against Detroit. Like, just him being out there on the floor, especially in this Raptors game. When he was out there, offense is great. When he wasn't, especially in the fourth quarter, it did struggle a little bit. So still a very, very important part of this team. Still one of the better players in the NBA. When he's not even 100% healthy, still putting up tremendous stat lines like this. Got to give a shout-out in this one as well to Kelly Oubre, who continues to have just a super impressive season. Didn't shoot it great from 3 in this one, but still shooting 38% from 3 on the season. 19 points, 4 rebounds. Love the work he's doing. For the most part, not settling from out there all the time. I think there are moments where Oubre can settle a little bit because he is hitting the 3 ball well, and he'll get some open looks, try to force a 3. He's so effective getting downhill, getting 2 feet in the paint, and getting that little push shot, floater shot, lefty jumper up, whether he's contested or not, it always seems to fall. He's playing aggressive, And he's playing two-way basketball, right? No, he's not an elite defender by any means, and he might be one of the Sixers' better perimeter defenders. I think that's a problem. We've talked about this on the show before, but he's doing really good things defensively. He does take some risks, take some gambles. Saw that in the Pistons game a little bit more. But we talked in the offseason, like some people wanted Oubre to just be salary dumped, and there was some chatter. The Sixers wanted to move off Oubre just to get off his salary. That's absolutely not happening anymore at this point, of course. He's been a key part of this team, and he keeps playing like this. And if he keeps shooting nearly 40% from three, we keep saying it, but it's a whole different side of Kelly Oubre that we have not really gotten to see, and it just helps this team so much. But the guy we got to talk about, it's got to be Trendon Watford, right? What he did in this game. I mean, Joel Embiid, people might not love this, right? But drawing comparisons between Watford and what Ben Simmons brought the Sixers back in his prime, a 20-point, 17-rebound, 10-assist, triple-double for Trendon Watford. I could have started off talking about this game with Watford, but I wanted to end with him so we could talk a little bit more about what he's done and what he's meant to this team. I mean, what a steal of a signing for Daryl Morey to get Watford on a vet min, somebody who, playing in Brooklyn, kind of just overlooked, right? A losing team, and he's out there doing some things, but he has a very intriguing skill set, right? And I mean, a game like this, 20-17-10, while playing efficient basketball, Sixers don't win this game without what he was able to do, just his unique skill set, right? There were some rumblings, not from a whole lot of Sixers fans, but some people always bring up, Ben Simmons could come back on this team and provide it with his skill set. He could be effective. Watford's doing all that and more right now for the 76ers squad. I really just wanted to dive in more to what Watford's doing because Trendon Watford has been an absolute steal for the 76ers, and credit to Daryl Morey for getting Watford this offseason on a small minimum contract, bringing in a guy in Watford who, again, had that triple-double against the Raptors, and man, he's just been phenomenal since coming back from his hamstring injury. What he does at his size as a passer, as a playmaker, being able to run pick and roll, being a good passer, being a good finisher as well, showing a little bit now of signs of life from the three-point arc, and also being a willing, versatile defender. This is a guy the Sixers have needed this kind of skill set, right? They haven't had this kind of player since, I hate to say it, but a Ben Simmons, right? Embiid compared Watford's game to Ben Simmons, a Dario Saric you think of when he was playing well early in his career with the 76ers. So getting a guy who has this size, who has this skill set, just brings a whole nother dynamic to this Sixers offense. They have desperately needed a skill set like this for a while. Credit to Daryl Morey for going out there and finding a player like this for cheap, who also has a great relationship with Tyrese Maxey. So Watford's been a steal. It's been so fun to watch. And is he going to do this every single game? No. Didn't have quite as good of a game against the Pistons on Sunday. But just to see this type of play from, again, a player that we talked about in the offseason really had the potential to make a big impact on this team. We're seeing that now and how important that kind of skill set can be for this Sixers team. Now, coming up next, we're going to discuss the Sixers-Pistons game on Sunday. Unfortunately, Philadelphia unable to hold on and win that game, dropping them to 6-4. And the Sixers now have played 10 games on the season, so I kind of want to talk a little bit about the overall takeaways I've seen from these first 10 games. Updated look at the standings, where the Sixers rank in some of their best stats so far early on in the year, because 10 games in, we kind of start to get an idea of who this team is, what their identity is, and if they can be trusted or not to maintain some of the early season success they had so far this year. But before we get to all that, first, guys, I want to give a big shout out to today's presenting sponsor here at 76ers Now. That is our friends at DraftKings. All your favorite NBA players are back, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is the place to bet on NBA stars this season. New customers, bet just $5 and get 3 months of NBA League Pass, plus score $300 if your bet wins, paid in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SixersChat. That's code SixersChat. Bet $5 and get 3 months of League Pass, plus get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. Pass-through of per-wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. NBA League Pass auto renews until canceled. Additional terms at dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer. And these are my picks for some NBA action here on Monday night. Of course, no Sixers tonight, coming off that back-to-back. I'm parlaying these 4 picks here. If you parlay them all together, plus 903 odds it hits, you can turn $100 into nearly 1,000 if these do hit. Lakers money line versus the Hornets, their favorites tonight. I'm going with the Lakers. They've been one of the better teams in the NBA so far this season. I'm going with the Blazers over the Magic. They are slight underdogs, but I think they play better basketball all year than Orlando. Even though that game is in Orlando, I like the Blazers in that one. Give me the Cavs as 7.5-point favorites over the Heat. It's a large spread, and the Cavs are on the road in this one, but I think Cleveland, just a much better team than Miami, who had a hot start similar to the Sixers, but kind of cooled off a little bit. And then give me the Spurs as 4.5-point favorites against the Chicago Bulls. Bulls have maintained a little bit more of that hot start, but the Spurs with Wembanyama, they've been really good as well. I think that line is just a little bit too low, so give me the Spurs in that one. Of course, all odds and lines are subject to change. Big shout out to DraftKings for sponsoring today's show. So we got to the win. Some good things I saw from that victory against Toronto, a team that you would expect the Sixers to be able to pick up a win over, even though they have been, a little bit feisty. They had some talented players over there. Detroit was another different test. Detroit, a team last year who really came on right after the previous year being one of the worst teams ever in NBA history. They bring in a new coach. Cade Cunningham takes that leap. They make the playoffs. They play a really tough series against the New York Knicks. And they started off this season very, very slow. Those first couple of games, the Pistons did not look good. But they have been one of the better teams in the NBA really since the first week of the season. And it was a hard-fought battle here between Detroit, between Philadelphia. Detroit was dealing with some injuries, obviously, for the Sixers in this one. No Joel Embiid. They did have Jared McCain in this one. And we'll talk about McCain in a second because he was available on Saturday, didn't play Saturday, then played in this one. Again, wasn't great. We'll talk about that. But no Embiid. Still no Dominic Barlow, right, as he deals with what seems to be the worst elbow cut mankind has ever seen. It's just unbelievable. He's wearing this big brace. And still no Paul George as we wait for his return. Sixers had every chance to win this game, and they kind of let it get away from them late. Had a bit of a late push, but, man, that last possession was a joke, right? And I like, in large part, what Nick Nurse has done so far this season. I think, when he draws up plays, they look good, out of timeouts, running sets, especially early on in the game. But just seemed like later in this game, in the fourth quarter, down the stretch, there wasn't a lot of organized offense. At least the Sixers weren't executing on the offense and the game plan that Nurse wanted to run. It just seemed a lot of an iso ball. Honestly, an Andre Drummond shooting threes, which unbelievable. We'll get to that, of course. Once again, I want to start with Maxey here. There's really not much more to say regarding what Maxey has been able to do this season, apart from what has already been said. Yet again, another 30-point game for Maxey in this one. Had, 31 against the Raptors. Comes out with 33 here against the Pistons. And a big matchup, right? Going against Cade Cunningham, another top point guard in the East. Those two guys, I think are pretty similar right now in terms of what level they are at. Of course, Cade gets a lot of love for leading that Pistons team to the playoffs. I think once we see Maxey back in the playoffs, he'll get that same kind of love. Did struggle a little bit more from the field in this one. 10 of 26, 4-12 from 3. Pistons, I think, were doing a good job harassing him. Asar Thompson's a very, very good defender, of course, brother of Amin Thompson. Cade Cunningham getting in the mix there, right? So they got some bodies they can throw at Maxey. Overall, though, still had a pretty good game. You'd like to see that pull-up three fall a little bit more consistently as it did early on in the year. But, Maxey with that huge left-handed dunk as well, kind of getting revenge after Cade Cunningham dunked on Andre Drummond. But in that last possession, I think it has to fall a little bit on Maxey as well, right? Be able to get these guys organized, get them in the set they want to run instead of just fumbling with the ball at the end of the game when you could have tried to get a quick 2, as Nick Nurse and Maxey said they wanted to do. Ultimately, that did not happen. As I mentioned, no Joel Embiid in this game, of course, second night of a back-to-back. Adembona has been struggling a little bit as of late, so against his former team, Nick Nurse gives Andre Drummond the start. And, man, he was phenomenal. Now, you see the 2 of 4 from 3, absolutely unbelievable. He took one late in this game that late in the fourth quarter I thought was just a mistake. I don't mind him shooting threes earlier on in the game, especially if he's going to hit 2 corner threes, but this just can't be something that he's doing late in the games. But look, apart from that, so many positives, right? And he just keeps proving me wrong. I talked in the offseason about salary dumping Andre Drummond, moving on from him. I thought he might have been washed. But that toe injury he was dealing with last season must have really been a lot worse than we all thought because, again, he was dealing with that injury last year. He was really, really bad. He's been really good this year, 17 and 12, going up against Jalen Duren, who's been super underrated to start the season so far for the Pistons. Just a rebounding machine. But Drummond hitting the glass and hitting those threes, not being a liability offensively and being good enough defensively. I love what I've seen from Drummond, and so with him and with Bona, they could be certainly a little bit inconsistent, especially Bona being so young. So it's good to know that you at least have these two guys there behind Joel Embiid. At this point, I don't think I'd want to move on from Drummond. I think you need the insurance of having both Bona and Drummond behind Joel. So big shout out to Drummond. Love what I'm seeing from him. And making me eat my words a little bit. And that's the type of thing I do love to see. Now, we're talking about some offseason additions, right, for the Sixers. Talked and gave some praise to Trendon Watford earlier. Jabari Walker, I wouldn't say disappointing because he's a two-way player, right, to start the year, but certainly has been a little bit more up and down. You were really waiting for him to make that huge impact. I think his impact was definitely felt in this one. Now, he's been a really good rebounder all year, right, and his energy, his effort, his hustle plays have been big for the Sixers team, especially on the two-way contract, but if he can get this three-point shot to come along, 2 of 2 from 3 in this one, and had a stretch where I think he had 10 points in 10 minutes earlier in this game, something around there that really gave the Sixers some life when they needed it. It's these kind of stretches from these kind of players that separate last year's Sixers team from this year's Sixers team. And why I have so much more confidence in this year's Sixers team. Of course, didn't end up in a win, but love what I saw from Walker. If that three-point shot can get unlocked a little bit, man, that just really helps him impact the game in even more ways than he already does, even though I don't think he necessarily needs that three-point shot to be super consistent to have a big impact. I want to end off here with this game by talking a little bit about Jared McCain because he's been back, played 2 games since he returned from the meniscus surgery, of course, also the UCL injury on his thumb. Look, he was available Saturday, didn't play Saturday, so he was able to play this game on Sunday against Detroit. Didn't play much again. Really struggled to get involved in the offense. Didn't make any of his 3 shots. He's just yet to make a shot this season. Look, he is wearing this big, bulky brace on his knee, and he's wearing that wrap on his thumb. He's dealing with a lot. He clearly does not like wearing the brace. He's talked to Embiid about it, about being able to play with that brace on. And the struggle right now for McCain is it feels like he's struggling to get himself involved in the offense and get himself some good looks. Now, an easier way to get him involved is to let him be the lead ball handler, which we saw last year when he was the lead ball handler. He was doing a lot of good stuff, right? Creating his own shots, creating for others, getting to that mid-range. That was really helping him get going. The problem is, I think with this brace on, it's really limiting his mobility and his confidence, and he's just not able to do the things he wants to do on the ball. So he has to play off the ball, but he's still learning how to fit into this whole offense this season with a bunch of new teammates, right, and guys he hasn't played with before. So I think it'll get there, right? I trust in the skill set. I trust in the player. Hopefully he gets that brace off sooner rather than later because it really does seem like he's struggling to play with that. But the more reps he gets, the more time he plays, the more comfortable he'll get. Again, he hasn't played basketball really in a year, right? Close to a year before he came back earlier last week. So give him some time. It'll be okay. Once he's back, what McCain can bring into this offense, it's absolutely phenomenal. And real quick, I got to talk about Cade Cunningham for a second. We mentioned him very, very briefly earlier, but man, what a player! And to close this game out the way he did, after I thought he struggled at points, especially earlier on in this game, but to end with 26 and 11, the clutch plays he had at the end of the game. Of course, he had the big monster dunk on Andre Drummond in the end, one that everybody saw, but also the little mid-range turnaround fadeaway shot he hit to put Detroit up 3, leading into that final possession for Philadelphia. Just so clutch. And this kind of goes back to a conversation I had in the show last year where it's like, man, the Sixers just need somebody. And Cade, Cade's a unique case, right? Because he has the size at the guard spot, but also the quickness. He's a very tough cover. So I don't want to make it seem like it's some horrible thing the Sixers let him kind of take over this game because he's a really good player. But I mentioned last week, like the Sixers just need somebody that can be that point of attack defender and at least do a better job on somebody like, hey, Maxey, I think has been good defensively, but doesn't have the size and isn't quite, at that level defensively to be guarding Cade Cunningham. Has a lot of offensive responsibilities as well. Quentin Grimes, good defender, but not great. Kelly Oubre, good defender, not great. VJ Edgecombe, I think, has the tools, but he's not strong enough yet, hasn't shown that yet. So these kind of players, man, give the Sixers some trouble. He was phenomenal. But again, something to kind of monitor, right? Donovan Mitchell obviously went off against this team, so it's just these kind of players. And again, they're star players, so it's not a huge worry, but it is something I'm at least monitoring moving forward. I do want to talk about VJ Edgecombe really quick. I haven't gotten to mention him yet. He's been kind of quiet really over the last 5 games. Now he's still having a phenomenal rookie season, and I don't want to take anything away from him, especially that start. Obviously, the historic start he had to the year. But, last 5 games, been a little bit more quiet, not shooting the ball all that well, though he has hit some big-time shots and some big-time moments, which, again, gives me confidence. He will be fine moving forward. He is a rookie, after all. You weren't expecting him to average 30 points over the whole season, and, his season-long stats do look good still, but over the last 5, certainly not as good as he was to start. I think he needs to continue to be more aggressive. I think at times he could be a little bit too passive. That also goes on Nick Nurse for running some more sets for VJ Edgecombe, but it's a long season, right? And I think when you combine, what you saw early, what you've seen as of late, you still have a lot of confidence in VJ, what he's done. And, of course, the athleticism still pops. I'd love to see that defense really start to come along. That could be a game changer, as we talked about, for this Sixers team. Now, looking at the season as a whole for Philadelphia real quick before we get up out of here, appreciate you if you're still hanging out watching today's show. Sixers are now the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference. Losing to Detroit. Detroit is currently the number 1 seed in the East at 8-2. And I believe they started 1-2 on the season. So, again, they've been phenomenal as of late. But Sixers currently slotted in that play-in. Still plenty of season to go, right? And only 2 games out of the 1 seed at 6-4. Obviously, at the 4-0 start. So, 2-4 since that point. They played in a lot of close games. Really, only that Cavs game and that Nets game have been not really coming down to the last shot. Pretty much every other game has kind of been a do or die moment in the last few minutes of the game. And as a whole, they still looked really good. You would have loved for them to pick up that win over Detroit, move to 7-3. But again, a long season, a tightly contested Eastern Conference. I do expect them to end up with a top 6 seed in the East when things are all said and done. And, again, we talk about these first 10 games. You kind of get a better idea of what teams actually look like, what their identities are. And with the Sixers team, with their explosive guard play, with Embiid now getting back into the fold, I think we can see that they are a really good offensive team, and that's where their foundation's kind of built. I mean, through 10 games, they're 4th in the NBA in points per game. They're 5th in the NBA in offensive rating. A great development here with the three-point shot, where they've been one of the better three-point shooting teams in the league after being one of the worst last season. That was one of the biggest concerns. And so I thought maybe early on in the season, is this a mirage? Is it going to keep, continuing to be this good? It has still been really good. They're 9th in offensive rebounds. Big shout out to Andre Drummond and Adem Bona for that. But also guys like Jabari Walker, like Trendon Watford, Dominic Barlow when he comes back, and they're 1st in blocks per game. So they have a lot to build on. They have a good foundation. I like what I've seen from them. The upcoming schedule, is pretty difficult. This is a part of the season where I know we're early on, right? And so a lot of people are kind of going to think it doesn't matter. We're in November, right? But I don't think you can necessarily, win your conference or win your season early on, but you could certainly fall out of the race, which we saw last year early for the Sixers. So, look, you got Boston tomorrow. Again, it'll be live for that game. Detroit again on Friday in an NBA Cup game. The Clippers, who haven't been off to a great start, but they're still a tough test, next Monday. Then the Raptors again on Wednesday, back-to-back against Milwaukee the following Thursday. So not an easy schedule coming up for the Sixers. At 6-4, they have a chance to separate themselves here early in the year. Can you get up to, 10, 11 wins? Or, do they drop some more of these games and they're back fighting around 500 for that play-in spot? So I think a big stretch. But I have confidence based off what I've seen with this Sixers team, even if they are sitting right now at 7th in the Eastern Conference. All right, that'll do it for today's show. Before we hop on out of here, I want you to chime in for me. Grade the Sixers through their first 10 games based off what you have seen. A, B, C, D, or F. Once again, thank you for everybody for watching today's show. Don't forget to tune in to tomorrow's live. And until then, We'll see you right here on 76ers Now.